Listening to old family stories of people who you love dearly is just the best, isn't it? Riley and Jeremy Adamson unexpectedly lost their dad a while back. Riley was 19, Jeremy 13, and got to talking about how they'd pay huge amounts of money to hear his voice again and his life story. After that, StoryBox was born. They use expert interviewers to call your loved ones and record their life story into a private podcast, as in a series of episodes for you to keep forever. How cool is that? I was on their website and saw this graphic that looked like a playlist, but it was of family stories. And I just thought that was the most magical piece of audio that we could ever have in our possession. So I wanted to talk about this, and Jeremy Adamson is here with us today about everything they're doing and learning over there at StoryBox so that we can get those wheels turning of whose stories we might want to record right now while we have the opportunity. And also, StoryBox offers this affordable package that I think would make a really high value gift for your clients, for those of you who are in business, or for yourself, or for your own friends and family as well. So without further ado, enjoy the story. Hey, Intentional Documentary, we've got Jeremy of StoryBox with us here today. Welcome, Jeremy. How you doing over there?
Thanks for having me. Good. It's great weather over here in Utah.
Is it? It's beautiful here too. What is it like over there this time of year? Because you guys are a lot farther north than I am. Do you guys get hit with like a heavy winter in the winter, or what's that like?
Yeah, it's pretty freezing. I mean, they say that we have the best snow on Earth here, so it's really, really frigid and big Arctic dry winter. Kind of dry in the way that it's not humid, so it's not as cold as like Boston, for example. But yeah, it's crazy because we really do get all four seasons. That's what I really like about it here is the fall is beautiful, the winter's really so different than the summer. It gets to over 100 degrees here in the summer, so yeah, it's fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure with where it's at because it's so close to the desert states like Nevada and California. You're getting far west compared to where I am anyway, so it's not really sure.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about who you are and what StoryBox does.
Yeah, so me as a person, I am kind of just a technologist, I guess you could say. So I love technology and I love making things better with technology to kind of work hand in hand with people. So a lot of times people say artificial intelligence is going to take over the world or something, but really I like to use technology to help people. And so I think it can augment what people can do. So that's one of the things I really like is as I do personally for work is just implementing technology to empower people. And so, we started StoryBox to kind of be that same thing for recording stories.
Yeah. So when you're saying technology, do you do like web development types of projects, or am I like completely out of the wrong field?
Sure. Yeah. So I do a lot of marketing automation and so basically it's kind of hard to explain, but once people get a grasp on what my skills are, they think of so many projects. It's crazy. And so I really have to get my foot in the door and explain, okay, I can automate this, I can do this and build this project, and it's going to make it so you don't have to hire a person to do this or whatever. Anyway, so basically, I just implement technology to replace the work that humans don't actually like to do, in Google Sheets or, filling out forms or, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So StoryBox is like a podcast platform for family stories. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say that it's a box for all your stories. To play on words. Basically, we can record your loved one's life stories or your life stories in little private podcast episode sessions. and then you can read them, download them, share them, or whatever you want, all on our platform.
Yeah, that's right. I was on your site and I saw that they get transcribed as well, which I thought was really, really cool. Um,
Yeah.
I saw what I loved. I was telling you just right before we started recording is that when I was on your site, I saw an image where it looked like a playlist, and I thought, oh my goodness, a playlist of family stories. That's so cool. I mean, I've heard of people interviewing their family before and getting those stories recorded, but I think I've always just sort of pictured that in one big file or in these files that just get lost on your hard drive. And so when I saw that format in like a playlist appearance, I just thought that was really interesting. So when on your platform, is it only like desktop website based only, or is there like, do you have an app? Like where
Mhm.
would people most likely go to listen to these stories?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can download them from our, we could call it a web app. So you log in on the web, and it's kind of an app on the web, just like Google Docs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have right now. Is you can log in and read them and follow along. It's kind of cool how when you press play, it bolds the word that's it's on, so you can follow along like a
Oh,
storybook.
cool. Yeah.
But yeah, so right now we have just the web app, and then we're probably going to get an app one day, but we're just taking things slow. I think we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. It's a really big world. And so this is just our entry into it. And then, we've got a lot of really cool ideas to develop on.
Yeah, I think you guys are off to an awesome start just from what I've seen on the outside so far. So, what made recording stories matter to you?
Yeah, like I was telling you a little bit before, my brother and I are the ones that started this, and we lost our dad back in 2008. And it was really unexpected. He didn't keep much of a journal or anything. And so whenever we're with our uncles and other family that knew him before we were around, or when we were really little, not enough to remember, we hear all these stories about him, and it's kind of uh, we're like, oh my gosh, we need to write these things down because or record them or something, because these are really valuable. And we, I didn't ever hear that story before or whatever. And so that's kind of where we came from. And we were kind of asking ourselves, how much money would we pay to hear his voice, like, his point of view from these stories if they were recorded before he passed away. And the answer is obviously, tons of money. We would be happy to pay so much just to hear those stories. And so that's kind of where we came from. And obviously, we can't record his life story in his voice today, but that's kind of where we got the idea from.
Yeah, yeah, especially that to have his voice. I so know what you mean. It's what's
Hmm.
really interesting is a lot of what I've built with my business, Fearless and Framed, was bred out of loss as well. And I haven't lost my parents, but it was the same year, 2008, when I had grandparents who passed away within 8 weeks of each other.
Oh,
My
wow.
my
Yeah.
grandpa died first, and then 8 weeks later, it was my grandma. And
Wow.
before she passed away, she had Alzheimer's, and I spent a lot of time with her because she couldn't be left alone anymore. And
Mhm.
I would like probe her with questions, and I would listen to all the things that she had to say. I remember she told me how my grandfather actually dated her sister before he dated my grandma, which I thought was so funny. But that's the only story
Yeah.
that I can really remember now. And I'm like kicking myself that I didn't record them in some format.
Right.
So yeah, I so hear where you guys are coming from. So now
Mhm.
on your about page, it talks about, so I think it was Riley, your brother, he
Mhm.
started with interviewing your grandparents. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
So tell us how it felt from your perspective. Like, did Riley do the interview, or did he have I know on the site that you guys have people who do the interviews. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
if it was him that did it himself, or did he have like a third party interviewer do these interviews?
Yeah, so I mean, this was right when we started, so we didn't actually have a pool of interviewers yet. So he
Yeah.
was the one that wanted to um, build it out, test the model, and see what he thought about it. And so he was the one interviewing, and it was awesome. I mean, it was really interesting, and you never think to ask some questions that one of our valuable pieces of Storybox is that we have a huge list of questions, and we can easily, based off of our customer what they say, we can easily chop up our question list and refine it down and so that they get the episodes that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's kind of interesting, when you're asking your grandma about her childhood, you never think to ask certain questions that come up in our list. And they're so fascinating to listen to. I mean, I had no idea that my grandma played tennis almost every week for like up until she was maybe 40 or something. And
Mm-hmm.
just different things that you find out and you feel more connected after learning and kind of listening to these things. You feel, um, I guess, more like they're a real person. And it's nice because when you're hearing stories of back when they were your age, you can kind of, it just is an interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually going to ask about like how what's come like from this and the way that you view like the people that you've heard stories from. And I know for me on the documentary photography side of things, when you get to kind of take a step back and stop looking at somebody as whatever role they're into you, whether it's a grandparent or your mother or whoever, you can start to look at them as a whole person, and you start to realize like, oh, they have like a really vast array of perspectives that I didn't really realize. And it gives you just that, man, so much opportunity there in
Yeah.
how you like. I find sometimes like I've found just more compassion after learning somebody's story, like just more compassion for them, or like it
Hmm.
just awakens all kinds of different things. And exactly what you said too, just feeling more connected to them. So,
Oh, yeah.
how about after you've listened to these conversations of I'm just going to run with your grandparents, did it open up
Mhm.
any conversations that wouldn't have taken place before?
Yeah. I mean, we're still going to interview. So we did one set of grandparents, and then we're going to interview my other set of grandparents. Um, and so I'm excited to hear what kind of things open up because I actually don't know that much about, before I was born and then that life of these grandparents. But yeah, I mean, it brings up conversations just like, oh, I didn't know you played tennis. Maybe we should play sometime, and you kind of get to joke with them or whatever. And then I don't know. I still need to listen to. Honestly, I need to listen to. I think we recorded 7 episodes with my grandma, and then we still need to record more with my grandpa. I think we want to do 7 each.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but yeah, really, I think the biggest benefit is it allows you to kind of see why they are today
Yeah.
and sympathize with oh, they grew up in this environment and that's way different and now I can understand XYZ or whatever.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, you just all the dots become connected.
Yeah.
So how when you're I've got so many different questions. I'm like, which one do I want to go into next? So
Right.
yeah, when you have listened to these episodes, where were you? Are you sitting at your computer listening to them? Are you on the couch? Or is it like a lot of people when they're listening to podcast episodes, they're driving, they're out on a walk? Like where do you find that like you have digested these? I'm trying to like put into picture like how people can use these on a day-to-day life basis.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so we're just at the tail end of summer. Summertime is generally road trip time, so I love listening to stuff in my car. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, we don't have an app yet, but you can still download the MP3 and listen to it on, however you would listen to it on your phone through an MP3 player. But yeah, so that I mean, generally in the car is where I find time to listen to things, and I love listening to biographies and books, and I've digested so much audio in my car. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, we've made it so you can digest it really however you want. If you want to read it, or download it and share it with other people, and listen to it with them. It's kind of it really is however you want to do it. But I would say the car is really a good spot. And then as far as how I've listened to them specifically, I just kind of sat down, and once you get into it, it's kind of hard to stop. And so I think I was just up one night really late listening to a bunch of them. And the nice thing is they're in 30 to 45-minute snippets. So you're
Okay.
like, it's like you binge like Netflix or something. You're just like, oh, I can do another one. I can do another one. And
Yeah.
then, by the end of it, you've listened to like 7 or 8 episodes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the interviewers that you guys are using now, I would imagine, are trained to sort of bring people back in. Like I'm thinking about people who, those people when you ask them a question and then they just ramble and ramble and ramble and carry on and give you all these details that you don't really need to hear. I'm wondering, like, because they could fill up one whole episode on one question. So I'm wondering,
Yeah.
the skill set of the interviewers that you guys are working with, are they able to sort of catch when people are about to do that? Do they know how to rein people back in, or is it just you just kind of let them roll with it? How does that work?
Well, sometimes it is beneficial to let them just go and go and go, but
Yeah.
um, there are certain people that just ramble, and you're like, how in the heck did we even get here from this question? Um,
Yeah.
but most of our interviewers are previous journalists, and they actually the way that our business model works is pretty cool. It's just first come first serve, and they take an interview when it's scheduled if they can. So they
Hmm.
don't have to do this full time or whatever. They can just be a signed up interviewer, and then
Yeah.
take interviews when they have time.
Hmm.
When they get the notification, they just accept it's kind of like Uber, I guess. You just accept a ride or whatever.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, yeah, I would say most of them are journalists, and they're really qualified, and they know how to guide a conversation and let the other person be the kind of the hero and the star of the conversation, but then
Yeah.
they're the person kind of leading and taking it the way that the, I guess they're really good at just understanding what the listener is going to want, and what the customer, because generally it's the generation younger that bought the episodes and kind of said, here's what I want out of this, and
Yeah.
then we call the parents or whatever, and so they kind of manage that expectation of this is what they kind of want out of these episodes. And so it's a pretty heavy skill set to have for these interviewers, but we found that they're really good at it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's so much that goes into probing people for their story, and I know just from doing this podcast that, like, I've learned a lot about when I can push the envelope a little bit more and dig just a little bit deeper to find like the heart of the story that my, whoever I'm talking to is just sort of living on the surface. So, I mean, it
Right.
really is, it's a skill. So how do you didn't do these interviews yourself. So I'm wondering, do you know how your grandparents felt when asked to be interviewed? Like, what was their reaction? Um, were they all like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do that," or were they like, "Wait, what? What is this? I don't know. Am I going to sound good?" Like, did they have any fear around that? Do you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're always really supportive. They're actually my dad's parents, and so they really liked this idea when we started talking about it. So they're always really supportive. Um, and the thing is, it's funny because on our Instagram, I've mentioned this a few times, but I mean, we've done so much family history, we could drown in it. It's crazy.
Mm,
And so, from one perspective, they could be like, well, why do we? I mean, we already have so much, we don't need to like do this. But they're actually really excited because it's such a unique thing. Like, oh, this is a recorded story in my voice of my life, and they don't have that yet. So
yeah.
But then also, like I was saying on our Instagram, we've said that, it can be a cherry on top to all your genealogy and family history work, but it can also be a good way to get into it. So it's
That's
really
true.
kind of, it's both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't gotten into family history a whole lot. I've just got what my parents have already had, which isn't that much, but more than some, I suppose. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes like the emphasis always like it lies a lot on the like really long lines back of people that you never even would have met when you were a baby because they were long gone. And I
Right.
think sometimes it's really easy to forget about the people who are still living. And
Yeah.
so I think that's just so cool that you start there. And but I see like too that a lot of your emphasis from what I'm gathering is like trying to catch these stories of like our grandparents and parents and older generations. But I also, Jeremy, see just so much value in gifting this to say parents, like say like parents who are expecting a baby, like and
Mhm.
having an interviewer talk to them about this like story, like this season of their life and what that looks like. So like for
Yeah.
example, my husband and I, he is from Ontario, Canada. I'm from Michigan. I was living with him for 2 years in Canada. And then we tried to buy this house that was outside of the city and in the country. And we sold his house. And 30 minutes later, the deal on the new house that we were supposed to buy fell through. And so we were like literally homeless 2 weeks before Christmas. And then a few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And a few weeks later, we decided to immigrate him to the US and just the stories like living together with him over there. We had this whole routine that we would do where he would wake up for work and he like he had to be at work at I don't remember 6:30 or 7 in the morning and I would get up and I'd hop in his truck and Tim Hortons is a really popular it's like better than Starbucks up there and
Mhm.
we would go get in the drive-through line and we'd go order our stuff and then he would drop me off back home and then I would go on or he would go on to work and so just little stories like that like I just see so much value in
Yeah.
not just the older generations but I would imagine like just even myself like looking back at the stories of my daughter she's going to be 8 now so that was 9 years ago when all of that was going on I think it'd be just such an awesome opportunity for anybody to pause and really tell the story of what's happened in their life up until this point to be able to look at it
Yeah.
5 years down the road 10 years down the road and then how cool would it be for my kids to listen to those stories that are currently living
Right.
in my head? So I don't know. I wanted to say that because I see so
Yeah.
much, so many stories that could be recorded in this way.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because people have Instagrams and they post, but journaling, I think, is pretty outdated. A lot of people don't actually do it, and
Mhm.
so this would be a great way to just get a little snapshot of, maybe you do one episode a year or something, and then you just kind of have that as your like year summary. Um, there are lots of different ways to use StoryBox, and we're just like I said, kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg, but people that are so busy and have such fun and busy lives, they don't often sit down and write about it or do any sort of documentation besides just Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever, which is pretty good still. But hearing something in their own voice as I mean, especially if they pass away suddenly, like my dad, that would be so awesome to just hear what kind of problems he was working on or just different things. And it'd be just a comforting thing to listen to every once in a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of different applications for sure.
Yeah, and I love that what you guys are doing is a guided experience, really, for the person who is having their story recorded. Can you talk a little bit about that, like the difference in having a professional do this versus, say, somebody's like, you know what, that's a really great idea. I'm going to sit down and record my story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so first of all, it's nice to have somebody outside of the family to do this because they have like that third person perspective and they can kind of just ask questions and it's not like they're biased or anything weird like that. And so that's a nice feature for sure. The other thing is it's just so much work, and so we've done all the technology, we've created the platform, and really all you have to do is just sign up, and then they just call you. I mean, you could sign up for an interview on your commute to work or something. Like, it's so easy. And then they just call you, and it's recorded and transcripted and created, and you can just share it with people. So we've taken kind of all the work out of it, which is nice. Like I said, implementing technology to do things for you.
Yeah.
um, and so really, I think that's where the most value comes. Is a lot of times people will say, "Oh, yeah, I'll do that by myself. That's one of the projects I'm going to do one day." But then it becomes a project that never gets done because they don't really know where to start, and it is a lot bigger than you think. And so that's really, yeah, probably one of our like the biggest value points. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, back to your question of just having a professional. I think it's just we have this bank of questions, and they can really kind of, like you were saying before, just dig in and get to the heart of things, and kind of maybe let them pull out. Oh, this is like what you're saying is maybe this is kind of a life lesson you've learned, or it kind of pull it out and synthesize stuff, and boil it down all into something that's fun to listen to. And these professional people, they really know what they're doing, and so it's just more interesting listening experience. And so it takes all the work out, and it just makes for a better experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, like if I'm just thinking if I were to do this with say my parents, I
Mhm.
might get to some questions that maybe I'd feel uncomfortable asking that a professional, like
True.
they don't have any emotional attachment to this person, so they're just
Yeah.
gonna do it. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's that as well. So I love that. Now I got your photo. I can see your iconic photo that you sent over. I don't know if I mentioned that that's what we actually call this series, the iconic photo series, where our
Hmm.
listeners submit a photo that is really meaningful to them, and then give us the backstory. Tell us who's in this photo. I can see which I think is you, your brother, and your sister, and your parents in the background. So what's going
Yep.
on here? What's the story behind this?
Yep. So this is the classic. We're in the front yard of my grandparents' house. This is where my dad grew up, and so his room is right where my mom is sitting, in the window well, actually, where he grew up, I think.
Okay.
And so, I mean, they've had this house forever, and I have so many memories here. And everybody, I have other brothers and sisters outside of this photo, but this is the three oldest children. I'm the number three.
Okay.
And so this is kind of like a picture of, classic memory, like Harry Potter when he's looking at his parents or something,
Yeah. Uh
like
huh.
back in the past, and everything seems so happy. Um, I'm just with everybody that I love and just having a good time. And so, it's fun to look at this and just remember back in the day, just what we would do. Where it looks like we're holding some apples, or I think we walked down. We would go feed the horses down the road with some apples. I think there was maybe an apple tree on the way that we'd pick these from or something.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
so just all these different memories. It's fun to have one photo that um, you can see, and just it brings back all these different things. And so,
Yeah, it sparks so
yeah.
many things that are not in the picture. It's what I just love about photographs. And your
Mhm.
parents in the background look just completely smitten with being parents. And they can't even
Yeah.
see all of your smiling faces, but your parents are just beaming with light back there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's an awesome photo. I mean, uh, it just is so comforting. It's like one of those memories you just want to hold on to forever. I mean, they're happy, we're happy, everything's perfect. And, especially after losing my dad and not having too many memories. I was 13 when he passed away. And so just any fun memory I can and hold on to with my dad, it's something worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you do any other kind of recording and documenting of your stories, your family stories outside of StoryBox? Like, do you practice any kind of photography, or or journaling, or like even like digital journaling? Anything?
Yeah. Yeah, I like writing a lot, and so I write my journal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the big things about StoryBox is even if somebody was going to read this, which I doubt, like, yeah, it's just hard to go read somebody else's journal if it's pages and pages and you don't know what the heck you're going to read.
Yeah.
StoryBox is so cool because it's their own voice, and you can put it on 2 speed or whatever, and just kind of go on a road trip and listen. So that's one of the nice things. But as far as me personally, I like to journal, and then I need to get better at taking pictures. But that's one of the things I do enjoy is looking back through pictures, and
Yeah.
especially with the new features today, like I was telling you, where you can search by somebody's face. It's crazy how even if they were a kid or grown up, it knows that that's the same person, so you can search by them. And
Yeah,
so I
that's
searched by my
wild.
dad. Yeah, I searched my dad, and then it brings up all his like childhood pictures that I have from, I don't know where the heck I got them, but they're in there somewhere. And so it just searches them and finds them, and that's fun to scroll through too as well.
Yeah, I'm actually in this process of where I need to move all of my, I have a whole bunch of external hard drives and I want to get something somewhere online, and I was looking at Dropbox for that, but I don't know, you've kind of swayed me over to checking out Google Photos. I didn't know
Yeah,
that that was possible. So
yeah, it's cool.
in thinking back on your dad, if you could go back and like if you could get a photo of him, of like an image that's in your head, what would that look like?
Mm, well, so this is, I think I actually might have a photo of this, but this is like the classic memory of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Well, this is a pretty funny story that I was thinking of something else really similar. But one time we were out in the desert. Like I said, he was a pretty daredevil guy. We heard a rattlesnake in this, like, I don't know, big metal tube or something. And we were out there, and he's like, I'm going to catch it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we're like miles and miles away from civilization, like far out there in the middle of the desert. And so he finds this stick and then gets the snake to come out of this tube. And then he pins it down and grabs it. And then he's holding this like 3 or 4 foot long rattlesnake. And I remember just looking at him like so nervous. My heart was pumping like crazy. And I was just like, who is this guy? Like, that's crazy. Um, and, he just was always doing funny stuff like that, and just always, I was thinking of another right out there in that same location. There's this old factory that we found, and he would go climb through these things, and just we'd go have a blast out there. And so that's like kind of the classic iconic memory that I have of my dad. And I don't think we got a picture with the snake, but that would be a good one to have.
Yeah, that totally would. That sounds like something my dad would do actually. He was
Right.
always doing silly things, wild things. I remember it just sparked the story for me that we have a family cabin up north, and we had a laundry line that we would hang our towels from when we'd go swim in the lake over, and bathing suits, stuff like that. And he took like a fishing pole and like let the line out really far, and the fishing pole was in the cabin, and he would string the line out through the screen window and then over the laundry line and then put a hot dog on the bottom of it. So he's like, raccoons came by one night and he's like reeling in the fishing pole so that they were like trying to jump to get these hot dogs, and just messing with the raccoons. And it just came up when you told the rattlesnake story. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how stories just spark stories.
Yeah, for sure. You could go on forever.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this, Jeremy. Will you please tell our listeners where we can find StoryBox and you and just all of your links?
Yeah, for sure. So our website is ourstorybox.com. That's OUR, storybox.com. And we're pretty big on Instagram. Any other social media, Instagram and Facebook is kind of our thing right now. So those would be the social media platforms that we use. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. We just check out our website, and you can read up and look at everything that we've done. I think, like I said, we're just getting into this, and it's we're kind of small at this point, but we're going to be growing. And so, I'm really looking forward to the other features and exciting news. So that's where it would be. You can join our email list as well for the updates. And so that's what I would say is just stay tuned for some exciting things that we'll be coming out with here soon.
Yeah, I can't wait to follow along. This is so exciting. I can't wait to check back and circle back around in a year from now and see what's going on with you guys. And those of you listening, one of the reasons I invited Jeremy on here is because I saw this, and for one, I mean, you heard just my excitement around what that would be like to have my husband and my story going into parenthood, or I love the idea of grandparent stories, or getting my parents' stories down in a recorded format. I think that the playlist thing is really, really awesome. But I also thought about a lot of you who are documenting for your clients, and I thought this is such a really cool and affordable gift for you to give back to your clients. I mean, who are obviously already valuing preserving their family. This is just another layer to that, where you can give them just an incredible experience. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for being on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll see ya.
Welcome back. I've got some homework for you this week. I just want you to do some reflecting around all that Jeremy and I talked about today. So here's some reflection questions for you. Whose stories do you want to hear in their own voice? Is it your spouse? Is it your kids? Is it your parents? Grandparents? What stories do you want to hear about? What stories have you heard before that just give you this warm feeling of home when you hear them, and you'd love to get it officially on record? Or are there stories that you've never heard before that you would love to learn about? What stories of your own would be fun to share in an audio format for your loved ones? So after you reflect on all of those, do one thing towards getting those recorded. Visit StoryBox. Connect with StoryBox and see Jeremy's iconic photo in our show notes at dangerouslygoodstories.com/067. Next week, I've got a gift guide for the story keepers. That's us, that I'm really excited to share. I've been working on this episode for a while, and it's essentially this big resource list of things that I love that helps me to drown out the noise and stay connected to what matters through stories. Until then, stay awake for your stories. Have a great week.